Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. I've gotten a lot of comments over the last couple of months regarding the hooks that I use for my soft plastics. And a lot of people were asking questions specifically regarding when to use an EWG style hook versus just a straight offset worm hook. They are very similar hooks, but there are two main differences between the two that will help you not only hook more fish, it'll help you land more fish as well. So I want to kind of talk about the difference as to when I like to use each of these hooks and the types of baits that I like to use with them. Before I do get into that though, I do want to remind you that if you're looking for a little bit of help on your local lakes, check out the lake breakdowns that I do at fishthemoment.com. We provide 40 waypoints for the specific season that are geared towards numerous different patterns. They really help you break down those lakes in that area. And it's just a simple way to help you kind of figure out how to catch them. So whether it's a local lake or a lake you're going to for vacation, check those out. Also, if you want to support the channel and you don't want to buy a lake breakdown per se, you can go ahead and just hit that subscriber button if you haven't subscribed yet to the channel. If you watch on a regular basis and you find my tips helpful, it's a great way to confirm to me that you are enjoying the videos. So let's talk about these two hooks. So these two hooks are both size 4/0 hooks. Just for the record, they're two Gamakatsu hooks. I just grabbed these off the wall. The one is an EWG style hook. This is EWG stands for extra wide gap. What that means is you've got more gap between the hook point and the shank of the hook right here versus what is a standard offset worm hook, a round bend worm hook. The offset part just stands for the little bit of a bend in the hook eye area. And you can see when you compare the two that there's two big differences. The first being the hook gap distance is wider in the extra wide gap. And then it's also a little bit shorter. Let's see if I can match these up. So these are both 4/0 hooks, and the 4/0 is going to be just a hair shorter. You can see it's just a hair shorter. Not much, but probably a 1/4 inch if you look at the tips. And that just has to do more with the fact that you lose a little bit of length because you have to increase that gap. So what are those two differences and what do they specifically mean? Well, the nice thing with an extra wide gap is if you're using bigger, bulkier baits, something like a creature bait or a beaver style bait like this Pit Boss, what that extra wide gap does, so let me rig it for you, just throw it on. What that does is it really allows there to be more room so that when the fish bites it, you have more gap there, meaning you have better chance of hooking the fish's mouth because there's less plastic to ball up in front of that hook. So most of the time, most anglers out there will tell you if you like to throw bigger, bulkier, soft plastics, your creature style baits, maybe like a Zoom brush hog, maybe a flipping bait like this Berkeley Pit Boss, something that's a bigger, bulkier bait, generally speaking, you are better off going with the extra wide gap hook because that gap can really eat up all that plastic. The round bend worm hooks are generally meant to be used with a longer, skinnier plastic, like most of your worms. I mean, that's the name of the hook, is the offset worm hook. And the reason for that is twofold. One, your worms are generally longer profiled baits. So this is a 7.5-inch Berkeley power bait. They're longer baits, so therefore having a little bit more length in the shank of the hook helps bring the hook point down so that you have better opportunity at hooking fish that bite your bait short. The other part is you don't need that extra wide gap. In this case, you get a fish to come and eat it, the bait slides down out of the way, and you still have probably about the same amount of gap because you have less plastic. So it's just a matter of the two things. Are you using a bigger, bulkier bait? If so, extra wide gap. And if you're using a longer, thinner bait, like your power worms or maybe something like a a zoom speed worm, something that's longer, thinner profiled in the body. That's where you'd be looking at using your round bend worm, offset worm hooks. It's pretty much that simple. So for me, that's what it comes down to. I do use both styles quite frequently. I like both, and they both have their time and place. But those are the two worm hooks. If I'm flipping plastic, casting plastic, winding and retrieving plastic, those are the two hooks that I'm going to be throwing, two styles of hooks that I'm going to be using, just because they pretty much fill the void for everything else. Now, that's not to say if you want to take the EWG style hook and put it on a worm, you can go ahead and do that. It still works. It's not going to really limit the performance of the bait. It does make your profile a little bit bigger and bulkier. And in my opinion, I personally feel like I get more hooks or more bites the less amount of hook that's exposed. So generally, I would rather not put an EWG style hook in a soft plastic that's long and thin like this worm. You can definitely still use it. You'll catch some fish. You can still use a creature style bait or a thicker style bait on your worm hooks. The problem is you lose a little bit of gap. That can hinder the amount of hookups that you get, which also can mean you have more skin hooked fish, which leads to them not necessarily being put in the boat. You lose a lot of skin hooked fish. So I do think there's a time and a place for both of these. If you feel differently, stick with what works for you. If that's what gives you confidence, then that's important. But this is how I do it. Hopefully this answers the questions that I've been getting recently on it, because both of these baits are prime time summer baits. So if you're not throwing plastics, you might want to give it a try to catch a few extra fish during the warm part of the year. Otherwise, guys, if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Stay tuned, new video coming out tomorrow.